They thought the golden retriever had turned possessive around their daughter. They couldn't have been more wrong. It started on a Tuesday. Sunny had always been what people called a soft dog. A 5-year-old golden who moved through the house at approximately half the speed of any urgency, who gave the impression of perpetual contentment, who had greeted every chaotic development of toddlerhood with a tail wag and no objection. When Isla first started crawling across him like a bridge, Sunny had simply lowered his chin to the carpet and waited for her to finish. So, when his behavior changed, Priya noticed it the same way you notice the refrigerator has stopped humming. Not the sound itself, but its sudden absence. Isla was 22 months old. A red-shirt kid, the kind who ran at full speed into every piece of furniture with complete indifference to consequence. She had been perfectly fine all week. No fever, no cold, eating everything put in front of her. Nothing that would explain what Sunny started doing Monday afternoon when he got up from his spot by the front window and began following her. Not the usual kind of following. Every dog follows its people. This was something with more precision to it, close enough that Isla had to turn sideways to pass through doorways without bumping into him. Priya watched from the hallway and told herself it was fine. By Tuesday morning, it was not fine. Sunny was lying beside Isla on the playroom floor, chin on his paws, but his eyes were not resting. They were tracking. Anytime Isla shifted position, anytime she moved toward the center of the room, he repositioned. His nose was working constantly. Slow, searching movements toward her face whenever she came close enough. Isla pushed him away. He moved back 2 inches and continued. Her husband, Joel, came home from work and walked into the playroom and stood in the doorway looking at it. "He's been like this all day," Priya said. Joel watched for a moment. Sunny had his long amber face angled over Isla's shoulder, nose hovering near the side of her head, not touching, hovering. Is he guarding her or fixating on her? Those were 2 different things. Joel had grown up with dogs. He understood the distinction. Priya said it out loud. "I think it's fixating." She was a registered nurse with 12 years in adult cardiac care. She understood, in a precise and clinical way, the difference between an animal displaying protective behavior and an animal displaying obsessive attachment. She had read about it. She had talked to families about it. She knew the recommended course of action. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. They gave Sunny a boundary, kitchen and back room only. Isla in the playroom and living room without him. Sunny moved to the kitchen without protest. But he stood at the gate they installed in the doorway and watched through the bars without looking away. Priya had the feeling, which she ignored, because she had the clinical framework, that she was reading something correctly, that she was understanding wrong. Wednesday night, Isla woke at 1:40 a.m. Not crying. Small sounds, fragmented, the kind that sometimes resolve on their own. Priya lay still for 4 minutes, watching the monitor. Isla moved on screen, but didn't escalate. Priya started to close her eyes. Sunny hit the kitchen gate. Not a scratch. The full side impact of a 78-pound dog throwing himself against a pressure-mounted barrier. The gate held. He hit it again. Then again, the rhythm of it, deliberate, each impact timed, not frantic, not random, but the steady percussion of an animal performing an action, until it achieves a result. Joel was already out of bed. Priya followed. Sunny was through the gate before they could stop him. He went directly, not to the playroom, to Isla's room, and was at the crib rail with both front paws up before either of them reached the doorway. His nose was at Isla's face level. She was lying still, eyes half open, and her color was wrong. Not dramatically wrong, just slightly wrong. The specific pale Priya had seen across 12 years of cardiac nursing when something the body was doing was not showing on the surface yet. She reached into the crib. The limpness was slight, the kind of too much that only registered because she was trained to notice it. She reached for her phone. The emergency physician at Children's Regional was Dr. Sophia Barreto, pediatric emergency. 11 years. Isla's blood glucose registered at 38 milligrams per deciliter. In triage, normal floor for a toddler at rest is 70. At 38, the brain begins losing fuel at a rate that does not wait for symptoms to develop. She would have presented with normal behavioral variation until the drop became severe, Dr. Barreto said. The fussiness on Monday, the broken sleep Tuesday night. Those were symptoms. By the time she was symptomatic enough to be visibly unwell, the window for intervention narrows significantly. She paused. What woke you up? Joel and Priya looked at each other. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Driving home, 2 days later with Isla in the back seat wearing a small glucose monitor on her upper arm, Priya sat quietly and thought it through. The repositioning whenever Isla moved. Nose working steadily near her face. Not fixation. Continuous breath monitoring. Reading a chemical signature in the exhaled air that was changing. Worsening in increments no instrument in that house had been calibrated to detect. The watch through the gate bars. He was not being contained. He was maintaining surveillance because no one had told him how else to do his job. The impacts against the gate at 1:40 a.m. when the number dropped far enough that it became the only available alarm. The one sound in that house with enough force to travel through 2 closed doors. Dogs detect isoprene and acetone compounds in exhaled breath at concentrations far below human threshold. The change begins hours before a glucometer registers the shift. Sonny had no formal training. No one selected him for medical detection. He learned it the way animals learn the things that matter. By proximity, by paying attention, by reading the one person in the house whose chemistry kept telling him something was wrong. They walked into the house at 4 p.m. on a Friday. Sonny was at the door. He looked at Isla for a long moment, then pressed his nose gently to her cheek. One slow, deliberate exhale, then another. His tail moved once, low and steady. Then he walked back to his spot by the front window and lay down. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Priya took the kitchen gate down that evening. She folded it and put it in the garage. She sat on the playroom floor, across from Sonny, while Isla climbed across his back in the way she always had, and she didn't say anything for a while. Then she said, "I'm sorry, boy." His tail moved, just once. He put his chin on his paws and kept his eyes on Isla, the way they had been on her all week. The way she understood now they would be. Not possessiveness, not obsession. The specific, steady attention of something that has decided to keep watch. The next story involves a dog whose strange behavior began 3 weeks before anyone in that family received a phone call that changed everything.